So where in England are you in?
I'm in like the south, like near, you'll know Southampton probably.
That's near Portsmouth, is it?
Yeah, I'm like next to Portsmouth in Gosport.
Okay, I've never actually been there, but I know of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm from the southwest of Ireland, so
Oh, okay. Ah, very nice.
always been there.
Fun?
Have you always been there?
Yeah, I've been here my whole life.
Oh, cool. So the missionary said like you wanted to talk. Apparently they told me, and I'm not sure like how accurate this is. Like you're a former Latter-day Saint who's now Roman Catholic or something to that effect.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, that is.
Okay, so and this is just like so I know like how to take the conversation, stuff like that. How long were you Latter Day Saint? How long have you been a Roman Catholic? And what type of Catholic are you? Like, would you believe Francis is the Pope, for instance?
Yeah, so
Okay, not a set of a contest. So
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. I am so I was a Mormon in like much younger years, so I didn't really learn about much of it. Well, I didn't like I was so
okay.
young. I
So
hadn't.
were your parents like Latter Day Saints, but like they were like iffy about it, or
Um,
just what's your ecclesiastical background?
so my mum, she was really into it at this
Okay,
point because my auntie married a Swede and he was the Mormon, and so they brought my mum into it, and she really enjoyed it. And then I think it was up to a point where she just learned more like doctrines that she didn't agree with
fair enough.
was when we stopped. And then we went back to the Catholic Church and my mum sent me to a boarding school, which was SSPX.
Oh
So,
yeah, Marcel Lefebvre. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
it's just on that border before you get to a sedevacantist.
yeah.
Yeah.
I spent some time in the States, so I was a bit of a wafer it for a while, but I was very deep into, like, say, the pro life movement in Ireland, especially when I was at university.
Yeah.
And that tended to attract a lot of trad Catholics. As far as I know, I think I'm the only Latter day Saint scholar and apologist who's studied, like, say, sedevacantism and the SSPX, which is basically a halfway house for sedevacantism. It's like all the big players who are Sadies have been SSPX, like Chicago and Sanborn.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, but so were you actually baptized Latter Day Saint, or was it like some
I
family
was
members?
I was baptized, yeah.
Okay, okay, so no, it's just I'm not sure if they told you my background, but if in case they didn't, born and raised an Irish Catholic, I became a Latter Day Saint over 20 years ago, and I spent 5 years studying theology in a Catholic institution that doubles up as a Catholic seminary, and I still try to keep up with the best theology and apologetics Roman Catholicism produces. So I'm critical, but I'm not like, say, a Lorraine Bentner, Jack Schick, the Pope is the Antichrist type of thing. It's much more complex than that. But yeah, no, that's fine. So I'm not sure like how you want to take this conversation all on news. Like they met some ex-Catholic guy who wanted to talk doctrine. So do you want to start the conversation proper? Or do you want me to start the conversation proper?
I don't mind. Uh,
Okay. What? Why are you a Roman Catholic?
I mean, I guess since I've become, I guess my when I became to a more age of where I could reason for myself, I uh, I was at the boarding school and it was the SSPX, and from there I just learned that I just kind of like fell in love with the idea of having a magisterium that I could rely on to tell me my to
Even when you're SSPX?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Even as an obviously I'm not technically a member because to be a member of the
You have to be a
SSPX,
member of Greece, but do you actually attend SSPX mass centers? And would you
we
basically the I'm sorry,
when
but
I
would you
can,
accept the SSPX party line, if you will?
yeah, when I can, I always go to SSPX mass, my old school.
Okay, so would it be fair to say, like, although you can't be a full fledged member because, of course, it's a priestly society, you would more or less agree with their grievances, if you will, with the current magisterium and the papacy? Well, you do believe they're a legitimate pope and so forth. You would be very questionable about some of what you would say their non-infallible proclamations and teachings and so forth. Basically, like you would agree with Fillet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd say obviously the Pope isn't infallible, but I'd still agree that he can speak ex cathedra.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just want to know, like, say, what type of Catholic you are, because of course there's a spectrum, and even when the SSPX, there's a spectrum of as because many SSPX are like functionally set up for
Yeah,
contests, and
but
no, that's fine. So you would say, like, say the papacy and the magisterium, as understood, say by Vatican I, for instance, that would be like, say, a foundation stone, if you will, for like your faith and hope and so forth. I
yeah,
don't seem like I don't want to seem like I'm trying to strawman you, but like,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, no, well, just like when it comes to, say, the papacy, funny enough, that's actually one of the issues I have with Roman Catholicism.
Hmm.
Now, of course, like, I'm not trying to set up a star and I know, like, say, the Pope can be a sinner and so forth, and it's not like, say, indefectibility and infallibility. And even then, I kind of know the nuances. I read Vatican I and Gasser, but I just don't honestly see, like, maybe I should ask this, like, and this is like not a condescending question, this is a genuine question. Are you familiar with, say, Vatican I and its teachings about, like, the apostolic nature of the papacy and its primacy and so forth?
Not really, no.
Okay. Well, I'm sure, like, say, when you attend the SSPX, there's like books or like, if, and this is not me being condescending, but if you ever heard of the book by Denzinger, Sources of Catholic Dogma.
No, I don't
No,
think.
well, it's a very good book, but like, if you were to read, like, say, Vatican I, the document Pastor Aeternus, where Pius IX, you know, discusses the papacy and defines the criteria of papal infallibility. In that text and other sources before and after, the claim is like, Peter is the singular rock of Matthew 16:18. It's on Peter and Peter alone that is like the rock of the church. He has immediate primacy and jurisdiction. When he meets certain criteria, he's infallible. And that immediate jurisdiction and primacy, that nature of primacy, is only passed on singularly to the Bishop of Rome and his successors. Now, I'm not sure, like, because of course you're not going to be a fan of Vatican II, like, how much you would agree with, like, say, the role of the bishops, like, but at least when it comes to, say, the papacy, that would be like what you said would be like, has always been the belief of the church. There's been, and only contentious heretics and schismatics and other people of ill will have gone against that. And I'm sure you've heard of Leo the 13th in his bull Salus Cognitum from 1893, I believe, where he basically reiterates that, and now, I would just say, like, and this is not me trying to like bombard you, but like, I would just say, like, say, if you look at church history, like, say, the ecumenical councils and even the proof texts that are often used, like, say, from First Clement or Ignatius of Antioch, they don't evidence any knowledge of any of the important aspects of the papacy. Even if you were to concede, as I'm happy to for the sake of discussion, Peter in Matthew 16 is the rock.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard. I've never really. I mean, I've been doing quite a lot of digging on Mormonism. So, but with the papacy, I don't know. I find it something just comforting. I don't know. It's just something about it that it's like we do have someone that can. Obviously, the infallibility, it's only been spoken, like, it's only been done a few times. It's not been.
To be fair, it depends on the theologian. I mean, like, since 1870, when it was defined, there's been two definite examples of papal infallibility. 1870 itself and 1950 with the Assumption of Mary.
Yeah.
But some theologians believe, like John Paul II, he's Ordinatio Sacerdotalis from 1994 on women ordination. That fits the criteria.
Yeah.
And some others have said, like, there are documents before 1870, like the Immaculate Conception, Ineffabilis Deus. I think everyone would agree, although that predates Vatican I, that was an infallible papal statement scientifically defining the Immaculate Conception of Mary. And some would point to Pope Agato's letter at the Sixth Ecumenical Council, I believe, is also another example, as well as, like, some would say Leo's letter at Chalcedon would be examples of papal infallibility pre 1870. And there's been other statements as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, like, if you've ever studied what's called secondary objects of infallibility, but basically infallibility of, like, say, the church when it makes universal decrees vis-a-vis canonizations of saints and the essential word and material used in a sacrament. To give one example, like, Pius X in 1947 issued a decree saying that the essential matter of ordination of the priesthood and the episcopacy was not the passing on of the instruments, but actually the laying on of hands.
Yeah.
Contrary to the Council of Florence that said otherwise. So, and that would be seen as like protected from error as well.
Yeah, I mean, don't know really how to respond.
Okay, well, I won't press you on that, but actually, a very good study would be Gasser. He was the bishop who was entrusted to give the official interpretation of Vatican I by Pius IX and the Vatican I Council. He's Declaratio. Like, I think a version is online, so that would be like a good place to start when it comes to, say, the historical overview. But I would just say, like, if you look at, say, the primary historical sources, like the earliest sources discussed, like, say, the Church of Rome, the Bishop of Rome, the abilities of Rome itself, they don't lend themselves towards a Vatican I understanding. And the Vatican I understanding is not interpreted like a development. It's seen as just like the scientific definition of what has always been there since the very first moment, if you will, as part of the deposit of faith. So I'll just, but if you haven't studied, I'm not going to press you on it. So
Yeah. One of the things which I looked into like a bit, which I only just like heard of after the discussion I'd had with the elders. I looked at the Book of Abraham. That was something which really intrigued me.
yeah,
I just want to,
largely because most critics of the Book of Abraham have never actually studied the scholarship on the Book of Abraham.
that's what I just wanted to like, I guess, know from a Mormon to like what you believe, like if you believe it fully and
No, I
like
believe just as my background, like I do have like training in biblical languages, and one of my best friends is actually one of the leading scholars on the Book of Abraham, Stephen Smoot. He's written an entire book on the Book of Abraham that's available for free online, a guide to the Book of Abraham. So, which he co-wrote like 3 other Egyptologists, including someone I work with on a daily basis. But to give like an overview, like say if you look at say videos on the Book of Abraham from like critics, the argument is in 1835, Joseph Smith purchased like the papyri and the mummies from Michael Shander, who was a traveling salesman who got them from a archaeological dig in Egypt, and there's an entire story about like how they got there. Now, the argument is that after Joseph Smith dropped about $2,300 at the time to purchase like the mummy and the papyri, of course, like he would produce true inspiration because no one claims he knew naturalistically or naturally Egyptian. He produced the Book of Abraham and interpretations of the various facsimiles. So that's like, say, everyone agrees with that so far. The issues come down to, one, if the fragments that were handed over to the church from the Metropolitan in 1967 is the same source as the Book of Abraham. And 2, there's other issues about, say, the interpretation of the various figures in the 3 facsimiles, And the 3rd would be the text, the Book of Abraham. Does its contents match a text that has, in terms of its origin, an Abrahamic original? Now, you'll notice like most critics will not deal with the 3rd. And the reason for that is there's actually a lot of very good evidence that the words and names in the Book of Abraham text actually have been found in texts that were only discovered after the lifetime of Joseph Smith. And I'll happily show you some in a moment. I actually have a PowerPoint I once did on the Book of Abraham. And also, there's a lot of convergence between the Book of Abraham and the traditions about Abraham in the text. That's not found in the Bible, but what is found in extra-biblical literature dealing with Abraham, and most of which were only translated into English after the lifetime of Joseph Smith. Now, when it comes to the source of the Book of Abraham, what we have is like 13 fragments, 12 of which the Metropolitan handed over to the church in 1967. However, eyewitness reports by Latter-day Saints and non-Latter-day Saints, when they're discussing the source of the Book of Abraham and the scroll that Joseph or his mother would show them as the source of the Book of Abraham, they would refer to it as like a pristine scroll, a scroll in very good condition. But this was at a time when the fragments we now possessed were put on backing paper and placed under glass. So of all the source material that could be the Book of Abraham, it's not. And we actually have even evidence from Joseph Smith. He did not believe that the Simpson text, Joseph Smith Papyri 11, is actually the source of the Book of Abraham as well. So that would be like my response. Now, if you want, I can actually show you like a few things in my research I've discovered, but yeah.
Yeah. So obviously in the Book of Abraham,
Yes.
I think I don't know. I got that it speaks about multiple gods.
Which Abraham does in the book of Genesis as well. If you look at Genesis 20, verse 13 in the Hebrew, and this is obscured by English translations, it says how Elohim, coupled with a verb in the plural, caused him to wander from area to area. And in Hebrew, Elohim, coupled with a verb in the plural, refers to plural Elohim. So I'm guessing you're getting this from Cameron Bertuzzi's Capturing Christianity, and if that's the case, that's fine. But Cameron is absolutely clueless when it comes to biblical exegesis and the Book of Abraham. The Abraham narrative, even in the Hebrew of Genesis, makes it clear Abraham did believe in a plurality of gods in some sense.
So I mean, I don't know. I was just obviously in it says that what was it? Let me just find. Sorry.
That's fine. Take your time.
So it says in Isaiah 43 verse 10.
Mhm.
Um, I presume
Before me,
you'll
that
know.
there's no God formed. Before me, there's no God formed. Yeah,
I presume. I just want to know how you would reconcile with that.
that's not a problem with LDS theology because we don't believe that there would be gods existed before God existed, and there would be gods after He exists. And also note, like say he's saying before me and after me. These are temporal terms. You can't actually make sense of that if you believe God is completely outside of time and you hold a classical theism. So even a classical theist, like a Roman Catholic, would not believe in Isaiah 43 verse 10 without context. And
Yes. So
also,
have
what's the historical context of Isaiah? He's arguing against the Canaanite and Babylonian deities of his time. And if you're familiar with Babylonian and Canaanite theology, he's actually arguing against Baal because in Canaanite theology, and we know this from the Ugaritic texts that were discovered in 1920, Baal was a god who actually was dethroned by another god, and there was an entire battle about that. He's just saying like he's not like these other deities. And if you go to Isaiah 44, 6 and 8, where he says, there's no savior with me, that's actually an argument against the Canaanite belief that there's a co-redemptrix figure who's a feminine, like Asherah or Atirat, who's a female co-redeemer figure with Yahweh as well. So, and also, like, how many persons are speaking in those texts?
the what was that?
How many persons are speaking in Isaiah?
Uh, not not sure myself.
It, when it says before me and after me and so forth, how many persons are speaking?
Oh,
It's one. I mean,
one.
again, if you take an all or nothing perspective without context, you have to be a Unitarian, which I
Yeah.
doubt you are.
What do you mean Unitarian? So,
Unitarian believes that God is a single person.
oh, single. mm, Well, I'd say it's a single being. I don't know why it would have to be a single person instead of.
Because that requires like a distinction between person and being, which I don't think any Israelite would have had, especially with the baggage of say consubstantiality and homoousios from the third and fourth centuries that you have to read back into it.
Yeah.
But for instance, I kind of mentioned like some things about the Book of Abraham when it comes to say its authenticity vis-a-vis the text, and I can actually show you some if I know how to screen share. So
I was also wondering with uh, obviously the LDS belief that God, the Heavenly Father, was flesh. How
don't you believe that about Jesus?
no, like how because what I gathered is that you believe Heavenly Father was like flesh, but exalted in a way. I don't know. I don't actually know.
Well, I'll tell you what, like, I'll just kind of, because we're on the Book of Abraham, we'll kind of discuss some Book of Abraham stuff, and then we kind of circle back to, like, what Joseph Smith taught in Kinfold Discourse. Would that be fine with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Can you actually see my screen where it says Book of Abraham?
I cannot.
Jeez. No, sorry, I'm using 3 screens at the moment, so I honestly have, it's a boomer tech moment. I do apologize.
That's right. Yeah, I can see that.
Can you actually see the slide saying Book of Abraham?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, for instance, in Abraham 1:10, there's a mention of a site that's not mentioned in the Bible. Even a dank offering of a child the priests of Pharaoh offer upon the altar, which stood by the hill called Potiphar's Hill, at the head of the plain of Olesham. Now, Olesham is not mentioned in any 19th century literature. It's also not mentioned in the Bible. However, the name is actually attested in a record under Ram Singh, a 23rd century king of Akkad, as Olesham, and is listed with the city of Ebla in northwest Syria, not far from Abraham's homeland. And here you have the inscription from the 23rd century BC, so even before Abraham. And on the right-hand side, the toponym Ulasaim or Ulasum, as appears in the inscription of King Ram Sid of Akkad. Then, from the very mouth of the Euphrates, he smote the river bank as far as Ulasum. Now, Akkadian, in Hebrew, are both part of the Semitic language family, East and Northwest Semitic, respectively. And the exchange between the O and U sound in these languages is well attested, as is the interchange between Sa and Sha. So in this slide, Ulasum could alternatively be transliterated and pronounced in a way similar to the Book of Abraham, Olesham. And as I note, as such texts were discovered only after the time of Joseph Smith, this makes coincidence an unlikely explanation. And what's rather interesting, like, even critics of the Book of Abraham admit, although they try to downplay it, yeah, there's a connection here. Christopher Wood, who actually has a background in Sumerian, says that certainly Olesham could be superficially linked on phonetic grounds to Olesham mentioned in the Book of Abraham. And that's in this series of essays actually critiquing the authenticity of the Book of Abraham. Now, Stephen Smoot, who's actually a personal friend of mine, he's currently a PhD candidate in the Catholic University in Egyptian and Semitic languages. He actually wrote a very good article on trying to find where Abraham's Ur of the Chaldees is. And he kind of notes this in a footnote. The meager rationale underlying Wood's brusque denial is hardly convincing. The archaeological and inscriptional evidence presented by Latter-day Saint scholars strongly indicates the connection between Olesham and Ulasum is more than just accidental, since the two converge geographically and chronologically as well as phonetically. So what we have here when it comes to Abraham 1:10 is attestation of a name, a place name, and in the correct geographical cultural vicinity, as the Book of Abraham states. So it's actually a bullseye vis-a-vis authenticity. Now, there's a couple more I could mention, but I just kind of mentioned this one because it's kind of really interesting. In Abraham 3, verse 13, there's a word called Sheneha, and it's said to be the sun. And it's like a term that's not attested in the 19th century. So it's another new word or new name in the Book of Abraham that's unique to it. Now, just as background, the pyramid texts were inscriptions on the walls of the inner chambers and corridors of ancient Egyptian pyramids, and they date from about 2350 BC. So 3 centuries before the time of the historical Abraham. They would later be copied in tombs, sarcophagi, coffins, canopic chests, papyri, stele, and other funerary monuments of non-royal Egyptians. So it's basically for the normies. Their function was to outline the deceased's relationship to 2 gods, Osiris and the sun, and guide him through the afterlife as a glorified spirit. They were discovered in 1880 and translated into English for the first time in 1952, so well after the death of Joseph Smith in 1844. Now, among other things, the texts provide astronomical, cosmological information to aid the person's journey in the afterlife. As was predicated on the sun's daily cycle of death and rebirth, the deceased's own afterlife was envisioned as a journey in company with the sun. The pyramid texts speak of the sun or the solar berg traveling along the celestial waterway. So, this is the background. This is where the punchline happens. One of the names given for the celestial canal or waterway, the sun's ecliptic, is actually transliterated, pronounced as Sheneha. And you see these in the pyramid text here. And the name survived into Abraham's day in texts known as the coffin texts, which were predominantly a direct descendant of the pyramid texts. And these are scholars, they would say that it would be transliterated and pronounced as Sheneha. On the very top, you actually see a glyph, one of the attested hieroglyphic spellings for the sun's ecliptic, Sheneha, in the ancient Egyptian coffin texts here from Egyptian Coffin Text, volume 1, page 53. And on the bottom, from a work, Hieroglyphic Dictionary of Egyptian Coffin Texts, page 59. As you note here, how it's transliterated, it's Sheneha, which is similar to Book of Abraham Shanaha, which is said to be the son. So again, we have attestation not just of a name, but a correct application of said name vis-a-vis the Book of Abraham, which again is like there's more to this. It's not just like one or two of these, but this is why, like, say, studying the text of the Book of Abraham is very important because, like, you'll notice if you were to do it, critics tend to like rarely ever discuss it, because it contains a lot of like ancient names that have been attested either in inscriptions or etymologies from relevant languages, as well as a host of other things as well. So would you could it be possible for you like maybe to like interact with Dash and give your thoughts on it?
What was that with?
Well, what I just shared, like say attestation of names, a correct place name unknown to the Bible and unknown to the 19th century that's been attested, and even like say even something like say Shanaha, which I discussed there, that have been discovered in texts in Egyptian dealing with the sun under solar Burke, and they were only found like decades after Joseph Smith's time, and they would be transliterated and pronounced in a way very, very similar to Shanaha of the Book of Abraham, which he said to be the sun. So, any thoughts on that?
Well, I know it's very compelling, obviously, to the like, as in, it does make you think that would be very difficult to do without any sort of revelation,
Okay.
or but I mean, I just don't know. It's quite a lot of I've gotten a lot of new information, I guess, is a way to put it. 'Cause this isn't like stuff which is written about very. It's not something you'd be able to find very easily.
Well, I would actually have to take exception with that. Like, there's like other LDS who have discussed this. I actually work for a group called Scripture Central, and they have a website called Pearl of Great Price Central, and there's like a few other places as well. So, when it comes to say the Book of Abraham, what have you actually studied?
I'd looked at it was one debate mostly where it was brought up. I presume you might have seen it. The one with Trent Horn versus
Jacob
against.
Hansen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jacob mopped the floor with Trent.
Really?
Yep, Trent embarrassed himself.
I'd say, well, I don't know. It's quite.
I've actually had faithful Roman Catholics who say that Trent embarrassed himself in that debate.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I just love Trent, but
I like Trent as well. I mean, he eats my stuff, but he embarrassed himself.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you like, where I believe in Catholicism, I wish he wouldn't have, but I don't know. I don't know. It's difficult, I guess.
Well, I would just like suggest, and this is not me being a smart aleck, like if you want to say like say the arguments against Mormonism, like the Book of Abraham, go ahead, but make sure like you at least try to see what the other side has to offer as well, because in Trent's view, Mormonism is backcrop crazy and no one should take it seriously, and he paid the price in that debate because he did lose that debate. And I'm saying, and I'm someone who's actually pretty critical of some of Jacob's arguments. I'm personal friends with Jacob, but I didn't like some of his arguments, and I think he let Trent get away with murder at times. But be it as it may, you have even like just say like it is as crazy as the flat Earth. If you can be interacting with advocates of a position, you try to study the best the other side has to offer. It would be the equivalent of me just like repeating jack shit like arguments about Roman Catholicism, like the Eucharistic wafer is actually Babylonian or Egyptian religion to Mithras and all that. It's like, no. So, but if you want, like, there's a very good website called pearlgraypricecentral.org, but also my friend's book with a couple of others. I'll actually get you the link because you can actually get downloaded for free. So if you were just give me a second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I will share the link here. I think there's a way to actually download the entire book somehow, but The BYU Studies website is a bit difficult, but that should be like a useful tool. It's all for free, and it
Yeah.
kind of discusses like the background to the Book of Abraham, like say how did Joseph get the papyri, the history of the papyri themselves, the ancient owners, like the circular disc, was owned by a priest called Sheshank or Shashank, and kind of goes into the history of that and all that fun stuff. The text and translation of the Book of Abraham, the interpretation of facsimiles, the various debates. So it's probably like the best single volume work out there. Unfortunately, it's for free, so it kind of represents like the most up to date stuff on a lot of the topics that can be discussed with respect to the Book of Abraham from a Latter-day Saint perspective. And these are not like say hacks. I mean, Smoothie's a PhD candidate; he has a master's in Egyptology, and the other three all have PhDs in Egyptology from Yale. And what's the other one? I think it's Brown as well. So
Yeah. I guess, I mean, you've kind of
well,
you clearly got a lot of knowledge on this. I know it's what would you say is your maybe your biggest battle that you've had to overcome with like Mormonism, would you say? Like having to reconcile with like something where it's like it's been a question like, well, how can I believe in this?
I honestly believe God has given me, supernatural knowledge. So I honestly can't recall. There's like been historical issues that I've had questions about and had to, professionally wrestle with and stuff like that. But I don't think I've ever had like say any, been on the precipice of doubt and stuff like that. So maybe I know other people who have, but I've never actually had any faith crisis or issue where for me, like, if I don't get a resolution to this, I don't know what I'm going to do type of thing. So,
Yeah,
and that's not me being arrogant, but
yeah.
it's just me. And maybe you should ask yourself, like, if there's been anything like vis-a-vis, like you're being a faithful Roman Catholic, if there's been any doctrine or issue, that you've had to wrestle with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think anything would go against the Bible, which is the other like well obviously I have tradition and the Bible, whereas Protestants just have
Well, tradition as understood by Roman Catholicism.
yeah, tradition as you'll know as I mean it. But
Well, yeah. I
I've
would just say
done
like none of it's ancient tradition, but yeah.
no, no, yeah, yeah. But I've done because most of when I spoke to the elders, I said how most of like the discussions which I've never really had a discussion with a Mormon, but I'd had them with lots of Protestants. That was where my sort of uh, knowledge of how to
You've been in England. I'm guessing like it's gonna be like very superficial Anglicans and maybe like some hardcore Baptists and independent Calvinistic types. Would I be
yeah,
correct in that?
I go to a youth group where I'm the only Catholic there, and they're all like some of them are I think we've got like Baptists, evangelists, and some Anglican, and so it's a very broad array, but it's good. I enjoy like this. I enjoy having a discussion and speaking to someone who like knows so much is just it baffles me, and it's really cool to see, I guess.
Well, thanks, I suppose.
But
So maybe like say on the topic of tradition, because like of course, like say as a believing Roman Catholic, you would believe that not lowercase t traditions, like say the smells and bells and like in all the accidental stuff, but like say uppercase T tradition, like say the Marian dogmas, the Trinity as understood by Rome, and a host of other things, you would argue that at least the substance of that would go back to say the first century, where the deposit of faith stopped being added to.
um, the I don't know. It's difficult. I don't know about the dates of things. I just know
Well,
like
yeah, but like and I'll just tell you what I understand by Catholic theology, and you can say like, but like Catholic theology would argue all there is such things as like private revelations like Fatima, Lourdes. Public revelations ceased with the death of the last apostle.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the deposit of faith, you know, stopped being added to at the death of the last apostle, say the end of the first century thereabouts. So although like there is development in terms of say words and appreciation of the doctrines, and so forth, the substance of say the core of the belief, like say the Christological doctrines, the Mariological doctrines, sacramental theology, and so forth, like say, and so like the Mass as a being the singularly same sacrifice of the cross and so forth. All of that was contained in the first century. There's no like or evolution of dogma, basically.
I think I could agree with that. I agree that I've heard that the from Roman Catholic perspective that um, public revelation stopped with the death of the last
Mhm.
apostle.
Yeah, and all the like say Lourdes and Fatima, if you're SSPX, you're probably a huge fan of Fatima. But even in private revelation is not infallible. It's not even when it's accepted by the Roman See, it's not binding upon someone. You just can't say it's false, and it can't be used to help produce, if you will, a new doctrine or teaching.
Sure, I don't really know much about the cans and can'ts about like when it has to do with that.
Okay, but you would agree with me, like say, like if say Pius IX, when he declared the Immaculate Conception of Mary in 1854, that was not a novelty. The substance of say the Immaculate Conception, just to pick one example, that goes back to the first century with Christ and the apostles, and
I
as a teaching, it's been faithfully passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah, I think so. I probably agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the fourth session of Trent says like scripture and tradition has been faithfully passed on from generation to generation by a continuous succession. So would you at least agree with me hypothetically here that if Rome were to declare a teaching, a dogma, like say the Immaculate Conception or the Assumption of Mary, but it could be shown, to like a very good level of satisfaction, it was unknown to the first century or even the earliest centuries of Christianity, at the very least, that would call into question Rome's infallibility and indefectibility.
It would call it into question. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you would be like the type of Roman Catholic who would agree, like it is possible Roman Catholicism could be falsified.
Um, from a faith standpoint, I'd say like I have full faith in
Sure, but
the.
like just, but
But
you would agree
I
with me, say if it
I always try
hypothetically
to.
proven, the mass is not a sacrifice, or hypothetically proven, Mary sinned, and she was not immaculately conceived, you know,
Sure.
it is at least possible, in that kind of realm,
Yeah, yeah,
Roman Catholic claims could be falsified.
sure, yeah.
Okay, and this kind of, and I'm not going to like discuss it now. Maybe we could like discuss like say at a round two, because I didn't know much about you, and you probably didn't know much about my background as well. But I would argue, just looking at say the history, even the ecumenical councils, the local councils, and like the patristic writings, Rome has elevated to like say de fide dogma beliefs that were absolutely unknown and at times even contradicted by the earliest sources like icon veneration and the Immaculate Conception of Mary. I just don't see there being any positive evidence for any of these, and these are dogmas according to Rome.
In what the Immaculate Conception of Mary
Yeah,
and
yeah. There's, for instance, like the Immaculate Conception. There's absolutely no evidence that she was seen as immaculately conceived, and related topics as well for many centuries. Now,
yeah,
eventually, like say in the early church, there's like a belief that somehow she was sinless.
yeah,
Maybe like she was made sinless at the Annunciation or some other time just before Gabriel appeared. But even then, the idea of like the Immaculate Conception that would be defined by Pius IX, you don't really see that until like say the latter end of the first millennium.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what I've known from how we get like the Immaculate Conception. One way is from the Bible where it says "Hail Mary, full of grace." I'm
If you
sure
are
you
telling me,
had that argument
oh
that
yeah, yeah.
if she's full of
Although that's said of other people in the Old Testament, at least the Apocrypha and other sources around the time as well. But yeah.
yeah, well, that's I mean, I don't know. That's what I've known from that. That's all I really.
Okay, well, yeah, no, the argument would be like Gabriel appears to her, says, "Hail, full of grace," and unless Mary was full of grace and personally sinless, it would seem like a very unusual salutation. That's basically what Ott says. And some would argue there's parallels between the Ark of the Covenant, which was the most holiest object on the planet, basically in Second Samuel, and how Mary is depicted in Luke 1 as well. And as Genesis 3:15, some argue that's evidence for the Immaculate Conception somehow as well, where there's enmity between the serpent and the seed of the woman.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't really. I've never actually. Now you like bring. I've never researched much into my. I've like done. I feel like I've done a lot of like ground level digging into like my church, Mormonism, but there's obviously in my still in my youth, so I haven't.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 18.
Okay, I have a couple years on you then. I'm 37.
Yeah. Oh, okay, just a couple years. But yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely something I want to continue to just keep researching because I really do find it fascinating.
Well, if you want, we can maybe do like say round two where we actually have a better idea like what the other wants to discuss. So maybe one topic we could discuss, would be, maybe something to do with Mary, because for me, like I have no problem Mary being the mother of God. I'm not an historian, and even the earliest text of Book of Mormon calls Mary the mother of God. So, and it's not like say I hate Mary, but I do believe like say some of the more unique teachings Rome has elevated as dogma, particularly the Immaculate Conception. I think that's like perhaps the biggest stumbling block I have to ever to consider being Roman Catholic again. So, maybe if you want to do like if there's like you want to discuss the Book of Abraham in more detail and get back to me,
Yeah.
So maybe like as a round two, we could like have Book of Abraham stuff initially, and maybe like the second half or round three, we could discuss like some aspects of Mary. Would you be fine with that?
Yeah. I don't mind doing the Mary one next, just because I think that's quite.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So if you want, like maybe we could like discuss like say Mary in general, but particularly like the Immaculate Conception and her personal sinlessness as well.
And yeah, I'm just gonna take some so I know what to
That's fine.
look up, and then just because that way it gives me a bit more time to look at the Book of Abraham because that is a very
it's a really complex topic, so that's fine. When it comes to Mary, I do have a response to Joe Heschmeyer of Catholic Answers on some of how he abuses the patristics. So maybe I could like share it with you on the chat. So
yeah,
hopefully you both actually argue this. Basically, he argues some early Christians believe Mary and Eve had a type anti-type relationship, like Mary was the new Eve and stuff like that. And on that basis, he argues, well, they believed in her sinlessness and the Immaculate Conception. So I don't believe this is like a death knell to the Immaculate Conception or Mary's personal sinlessness per se. It just kind of showed like, and I'm not accusing you of this, but like how even some of the better normie Catholic apologists, you have to be a bit careful when how they use sources. So, but if you want to also have an idea like how I approach like the patristics and other texts as well, maybe that would be useful. So,
yeah.
Or we can just like discuss biblical topics like what does full grace or kakartomene in Luke 128 means and stuff like that. But yeah, we can definitely do like a round two. Would like say, how's your weekends, by the way?
I work Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays I work 6 a.m. till 12:30, so I've got like the rest of the day.
Maybe not this Saturday, but maybe next Saturday. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, that's not.
Would like say 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. be fine? We're in the same time zone, unfortunately. So yeah.
6 p.m. is probably good for me.
No, that's perfect. Fine. That is perfect. I will make a note of that, and I'll make sure the elders get the Zoom link and they can pass it on to you as well. So 6 p.m. the 28th February. So yeah, and we can discuss like some aspects of Mariology and stuff like that.
Is it the first?
Oh yeah, sorry, I thought today was Friday. Yeah, 1st of March. Sorry. It's been one of those weeks where I don't even know what day it is. Like I actually thought 2 days ago was like Thursday. So, but no, we can definitely do the 1st of March. I'll elders, if you were to PM me afterwards, so just to remind me to pass on the Zoom link I'll create, and we can discuss that. So yeah, so that's good with you. So yeah, I know it's kind of being brief, but like I think like if we just have some idea like better preparation next time, it can be not this was like a waste of time. I think this was fruitful, but this was good. So
It was good.
we can definitely do a round 2, and maybe round 3 vis-a-vis Book of Abraham stuff after that as well. So
Yeah, sounds
but
good.
great talking with you, and enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend ahead as well. So I'll catch you Saturday week.
Yeah. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Take care.
All right.